Captain Zektar felt the cold metal floor vibrate under his clawed feet as another system failed on his ship. The lights flickered again, casting strange shadows across the bridge where his crew worked desperately at their stations. The reptilian, Captain's yellow eyes darted between the failing displays, each one showing him the same terrible truth. His ship was dying, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Federation vessel Serenity's light had been traveling through the empty space between star systems when the main engine exploded without warning. Now they drifted helplessly in the void, their life support systems breaking down one by one. The air tasted stale and bitter, filled with the sharp smell of burning electronics and fear. "Captain, the carbon scrubbers have stopped working," reported Science Officer Velshan from her station. The tall, blue-skinned alien's voice carried a tremor that she tried to hide. "We have maybe 6 hours before the air becomes too poisonous to breathe." Zektar closed his eyes and tried to think. His crew of 23 beings from different worlds looked to him for answers he did not have. The quantum communicator was damaged beyond repair, cut off from the galactic network that connected all civilized worlds. Their emergency beacon could only reach other Federation ships, but none traveled through this remote sector. "What about the old radio transmitter?" asked Engineer Gorthak, his forearms still working to reroute power from the failing generators. "The one we use for talking to primitive worlds?" Velshan turned from her console, her large, dark eyes wide with alarm. "Captain, you cannot be serious. This sector borders on Deathworlder territory. The humans live near here." The bridge fell silent, except for the constant hum of failing systems. Every member of the crew knew about humans, though few had ever seen one. They were the species that lived on a world so dangerous that most galactic citizens could not survive there for even a day. Stories spread through spaceports about their incredible strength, their resistance to toxins that would kill other beings instantly, and their disturbing ability to heal from wounds that should be fatal. "They are savages," whispered Communications Officer Plixon, his tentacles writhing with nervousness. "They fight wars with chemical weapons and atomic fire. They eat the flesh of other creatures." Zektar looked around at his crew and saw the fear in their faces. He had heard the same stories, the same warnings from the Galactic Safety Council about keeping away from human space. But he also remembered something else, something from the old reports that most people ignored. "They also rescue their enemies from burning ships," he said quietly. "I read the military reports. Even in their wars, they risk their lives to save wounded enemies. It makes no sense, but they do it." The captain moved to the emergency communications panel and began powering up the ancient radio transmitter. The device was old and simple, designed to send basic signals across short distances to worlds that had not yet developed faster-than-light communication. It was their only hope. "Captain, please reconsider," Velshan pleaded. "The humans are unpredictable. They might see us as invaders or threats. Their military is known to shoot first and ask questions later." Another alarm sounded as the water recycling system shut down completely. The acrid smell of smoke drifted from the engineering section where Gorthak was fighting a losing battle against cascading system failures. They were running out of time and options. Zektar's clawed finger hovered over the transmission button. Everything he had been taught told him that calling for human help was madness. But everything he had learned as a ship captain told him that any chance was better than watching his crew die slowly in the poisoned air of a dead ship. He pressed the button and spoke into the microphone, knowing that his words would travel through space at the speed of light, a painfully slow crawl compared to quantum communications. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Federation vessel Serenity's light. Our position is..." He read off the coordinates from his navigation display. "Life support. Failing. We have crew of 23 beings requiring immediate assistance. Please respond." Meanwhile, thousands of miles away on Luna Station, Communications Officer Lisa Martinez was finishing her night shift monitoring Earth's outer communication networks. The young woman sipped her coffee and watched the endless stream of data flowing across her screens. Most of it was routine traffic between Earth and the colony worlds, mixed with automated signals from mining operations and research stations. Then something different appeared on her screen. The signal was weak and distorted, coming from outside human space on old radio frequencies that almost nobody used anymore. Lisa adjusted her equipment and listened to the transmission with growing amazement. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself as she played the message again. The voice was clearly non-human, speaking in what sounded like perfect English, but with strange clicking sounds and hisses mixed in. Her computer's translation software was working overtime to make sense of the alien grammar and pronunciation. Lisa's hands shook as she reached for her communication panel. She had been trained for this moment but never expected it to actually happen. First contact with alien intelligence was supposed to happen through careful diplomatic channels, not through a desperate cry for help picked up during a routine monitoring shift. "Commander Sullivan to the communication center immediately," she announced over the station's intercom system. "We have a priority situation." Commander Jake Sullivan arrived within minutes, still pulling on his uniform jacket. The tall, gray-haired officer had spent 30 years in space communications, but his experience had not prepared him for what Lisa showed him on her screen. "Play it again," he ordered, listening carefully to the alien voice pleading for help. His weathered face showed no emotion, but Lisa could see the tension in his shoulders as he processed what they were hearing. "How many people know about this?" Sullivan asked. "Just us, sir. I followed protocol and isolated the signal before calling you." Sullivan nodded and activated his secure communication link to Earth Command. Within an hour, the message had reached the highest levels of human government and military leadership. Admiral Karen Mitchell convened an emergency meeting of the Defense Council, where military officers and scientists debated their response to humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. The debate was intense and heated. Some argued that the message could be a trap, designed to lure human ships into an ambush. Others worried about revealing human military capabilities to potential enemies. But Captain Danny Foster of the UES Defiant spoke for many when he stood up in the meeting room and addressed the assembled leaders. "We are talking about people who are going to die if we do nothing," Foster said, his voice carrying the authority of a man who had spent his career rescuing others in space. "I do not care what species they are or what they look like. They called for help and we have the ability to provide it. That makes this our responsibility." Admiral Mitchell looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military and political leaders. She saw fear, uncertainty, and calculation in their expressions. But she also saw something else, something that had driven humanity to spread across the stars despite countless dangers and setbacks. She saw the same stubborn refusal to abandon others that had defined their species since they first looked up at the night sky. "Captain Foster," she said finally, "prepare your ship for immediate departure. Take whatever escort vessels you need. Find these aliens and bring them home safely." As the meeting broke up and orders were issued, none of the human leaders realized that their decision would change the galaxy forever. They only knew that somewhere in the darkness of space people were dying, and that was something they could not ignore. Captain Danny Foster stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant as his ship dropped out of hyperspace near the coordinates from the alien distress call. The view screen showed empty space filled with distant stars, but his sensors quickly located the Federation vessel drifting helplessly several thousand miles away. "There she is," announced Sensor Officer Kevin Price, pointing at his display. "The ship matches the description from the transmission. I am reading multiple life signs, but they are weak." Foster studied the alien vessel through his ship's powerful telescopes. It was unlike anything in human databases, with smooth curves and strange crystalline sections that caught the light of nearby stars. Smoke drifted from several hull breaches, and the ship's running lights flickered weakly. "Open a channel," Foster ordered. "This is Captain Danny Foster of the Earth vessel Defiant. We received your distress call and are here to help. Please, respond." The reply came quickly, filled with static and strange clicking sounds. "Captain Foster, this is Captain Zektar of the Serenity's Light. We are grateful beyond words. Our life support systems are failing rapidly." Dr. Rachel Green, the ship's medical officer, looked up from her scanner readings. "Captain, I am detecting at least 6 different species aboard that vessel. Their atmospheric requirements are similar to ours, but some of them are showing signs of severe oxygen deprivation." Foster nodded and turned to his chief engineer. Paul, can we dock with them safely? Chief Engineer Paul Rodriguez was already studying the alien ship's design on his console. It will be tricky, sir. Their docking ports do not match our systems, but I think we can create a temporary seal. Give me 20 minutes with a repair crew. The Defiant moved slowly toward the alien vessel, while Rodriguez and his team prepared for the most unusual rescue mission in human history. The two escort frigates commanded by Captain Steve Parker and Laura Chen took protective positions nearby, their weapons powered down, but ready. As the ships connected with a series of metallic clanks and hisses, Foster felt the weight of the moment. This was first contact between humanity and alien intelligence, happening not in a diplomatic meeting room, but in the middle of a life-or-death emergency. Lieutenant Commander Troy Williams led the first boarding party through the makeshift airlock. The human engineers, wearing full environmental suits, carried emergency life support equipment and medical supplies. Behind them came Specialist Kelly Davis with her team of technicians, ready to help repair the alien ship's failing systems. The first thing that struck Williams was the smell. Even through his suit's filters, he could detect the acrid odor of burning electronics and the sharp tang of alien atmosphere. Emergency lighting cast red shadows through corridors designed for beings very different from humans. Captain Zektar met them in what appeared to be the main corridor. The reptilian alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, covered in green scales that reflected the emergency lights. His yellow eyes showed exhaustion and desperation, but also hope for the first time in hours. "You came," Zektar said through a translation device that converted his words into heavily accented English. "We did not think anyone would answer our call." Williams removed his helmet and breathed the ship's atmosphere carefully. It was thin and tasted metallic, but human lungs could handle it. "We always answer distress calls, Captain. It is what we do." The rescue operation began immediately. Dr. Green set up a temporary medical station to treat crew members suffering from oxygen starvation and toxic gas exposure. Several aliens were in critical condition, including Science Officer Velshan, who had collapsed at her station while trying to keep the air recyclers working. Engineer Rodriguez worked with alien crew members to understand their systems and began emergency repairs. The differences in technology were vast, but engineering principles remained the same across species. Soon, human and alien technicians were working side by side to restore life support. The cultural exchange was awkward but filled with small moments of understanding. When Specialist Davis offered water to a dehydrated alien crew member, the being's grateful expression needed no translation. When Rodriguez showed an alien engineer how human tools worked, they responded with eager clicking sounds that clearly meant excitement. Captain Foster joined Captain Zektar on the alien bridge, where they attempted to communicate through simple gestures and mathematical concepts. The reptilian captain tried to explain what had happened to his ship, drawing diagrams on a portable display screen. "Enemy," Zektar said, pointing to crude drawings of angular warships. "Hegemony. They hunt us." Foster nodded, understanding the basic situation. The Federation ship had been fleeing from hostile forces when their engine failed. He was about to ask for more details when his communication officer's voice crackled through his radio. "Captain, we have multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. 12 vessels, unknown configuration, approaching fast." The Hegemony fleet materialized around the rescue operation like predators surrounding wounded prey. The alien warships were massive and angular, bristling with weapon arrays that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. Their hulls were dark metal, covered with strange symbols that seemed to shift and move in the starlight. A transmission came from the lead Hegemony vessel, filled with harsh, chittering sounds that the translation computers struggled to process. When the words finally came through, they carried the arrogance of beings who had never known defeat. "Federation cowards and primitive mammals, you will surrender immediately. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Captain Foster looked at the tactical display showing 12 enemy ships surrounding his small rescue fleet. The Defiant and her 2 escorts were outnumbered 4-1 by vessels that were clearly designed for war. Any reasonable commander would consider surrender or retreat, but Danny Foster had not become a rescue ship captain by being reasonable. He had saved lives in asteroid fields, hostile star systems, and the middle of civil wars. The idea of abandoning people in need was simply not in his vocabulary. "This is Captain Foster of the Earth vessel Defiant," he broadcast on all frequencies. "These beings are under our protection. We are conducting a humanitarian rescue operation in neutral space. Withdraw your forces immediately." The response was laughter. High-pitched chittering sounds that needed no translation filled the communication channels. Commander Clickthak of the Hegemony Fleet found the idea of primitive mammals challenging, his authority deeply amusing. "Your species is unknown to us, mammals. You will learn your place in the natural order. All Federation sympathizers will be eliminated." The first Hegemony ship opened fire without further warning. Captain Parker's escort frigate, the UES Ranger, disappeared in a ball of superheated plasma that lit up the darkness of space. 43 human lives ended in an instant, murdered while trying to save strangers. The shock of the attack stunned both human and alien crews. Captain Zektar watched in horror as beings who had risked their lives to save his people were killed without mercy or provocation. Science Officer Velshan, now conscious thanks to Dr. Green's treatment, whispered, "Alien prayers for the dead humans." But Captain Foster's reaction was not shock or fear. As he watched the debris of the Ranger drift past his view screen, something cold and hard settled in his chest. These aliens had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had attacked humans who were trying to help others. Foster opened a channel to Earth Command, while his remaining ships maneuvered desperately to avoid the Hegemony weapons. "This is Captain Foster. The aliens have opened fire on our rescue mission. The Ranger is destroyed with all hands. We are under attack by hostile forces while conducting humanitarian operations." He paused as another enemy salvo barely missed. The Defiant then continued with the words that would change everything. "Admiral Mitchell, they killed our people while we were trying to save lives. Send everything we have. Send the entire fleet." As the battle raged around them, the Federation survivors realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. These humans, faced with overwhelming odds and unprovoked aggression, were not running or surrendering. They were fighting back with a fury that made the very air seem to vibrate with their anger, and they were calling for reinforcements. Captain Zektar looked at Foster and saw something in the human's eyes that made his scales ripple with sudden understanding. These were not just another species. These were predators, and someone had just threatened their pack. Admiral Karen Mitchell stood in the command center at Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the live transmission from Captain Foster's ship with growing anger. The tactical display showed the Defiant and the remaining escort frigate fighting desperately against 12 enemy vessels while trying to protect the damaged alien ship. The video feed from the battle was crystal clear. She watched the Hegemony ships destroy the Ranger without warning, killing 43 human beings who had been trying to save lives. The cold-blooded murder of her people, while they conducted a rescue mission, filled her with a rage she had not felt since the colony wars 20 years earlier. "Get me President Santos on the emergency channel," Mitchell ordered her communication staff. "And I want every fleet commander online in 5 minutes." Around her, the command center erupted into controlled chaos as officers began implementing the largest military mobilization in human history. Data screens lit up with ship positions, supply reports, and deployment schedules as the entire human defense fleet received activation orders. President Maria Santos appeared on the main screen. Within minutes, her face grim as she reviewed the battle footage. Behind her, Mitchell could see other government leaders gathering in the emergency war room beneath the Capitol. "Admiral, what are we looking at?" Santos asked, though her expression showed she already understood the gravity of the situation. "Madam, President, our rescue ships were attacked without provocation while conducting humanitarian operations," Mitchell replied. "The enemy opened fire on Captain Foster's fleet while they were trying to save alien civilians. We have 43 confirmed dead." The President's jaw tightened as she watched the replay of the Ranger's destruction. "What do you need, Admiral?" "I need authorization to deploy the entire fleet. Every battle group, every reserve squadron, everything we have. These aliens just declared war on humanity by attacking our rescue mission." Santos nodded grimly. "You have full authorization?" Bring our people home and make sure this never happens again." As the president's image faded, Admiral Mitchell turned to face the gathered fleet commanders appearing on screens around the room. General Sam Carter looked ready for war from his command post on Mars. Admiral Tony Hayes stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought UES Retribution at Luna Station. Admiral Nancy Brooks transmitted from her patrol fleet in the outer colonies. "Gentlemen and ladies," Mitchell began, her voice carrying across human space to reach every major military installation. 43 of our people were murdered today, while trying to save alien civilians. The enemy made a simple mistake. They thought we were weak because we help others. They are about to learn how wrong they were. The response was immediate and overwhelming. General Carter's Mars Defense Force began moving 60 destroyers and cruisers toward the assembly point near Jupiter. Admiral Hayes powered up the heavy battle group at Luna, including the Retribution and 5 other dreadnoughts that had been built during the colony wars, but never fully tested in combat. From the mining colonies in the asteroid belt, Admiral Brooks brought her patrol fleet of fast attack ships and converted freighters armed with mining lasers. Corporate security forces throughout human space volunteered their vessels under the command of Captain Bill Anderson, adding another 30 ships to the growing armada. The Federation survivors aboard the Defiant watched in amazement as human ships began appearing on long-range sensors. Captain Zektar could not believe what he was seeing as more and more vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the human rally point. "How many ships do your people have?" he asked Captain Foster during a brief lull in the battle. Foster smiled grimly as he watched his tactical display. "Enough," he replied simply. Science Officer Velshan worked frantically at a borrowed human console, trying to analyze the approaching fleet composition. What she discovered made her scales pale with shock. "Captain Zektar, the humans are bringing over 300 warships. Some of them are enormous." The reptilian captain studied the sensor readings with growing disbelief. The largest human vessels were bigger than anything in the Federation fleet, bristling with weapon systems that seemed designed for total warfare, rather than the limited conflicts most galactic species preferred. "We must warn them," Zektar said, urgently. "The hegemony controls over 300 star systems. They can field thousands of ships if they choose to. These humans do not understand what they are facing." Foster overheard the conversation and turned to face the alien captain. "How many hegemony ships are in this sector right now?" "Perhaps 800 total," Zektar replied. "Commander Clickthak has called for reinforcements. They plan to make an example of your people." The human captain nodded as if discussing the weather rather than facing impossible odds. "Good. That means we won't have to hunt them down individually." Meanwhile, at the human assembly point near Jupiter, the greatest war fleet in human history was taking shape. Ships arrived hourly, as reserve units were activated and recalled from deep space assignments. The fleet included everything from massive dreadnoughts to small patrol craft, united by their crews' burning desire for revenge. Commander Pete Johnson stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser UES Vengeance, watching the endless stream of ships joining the formation. He had fought in 3 colonial conflicts and thought he understood war, but the scale of this mobilization was beyond anything he had imagined. "Sir, we just received word that the Mining Guild is sending their heavy haulers," reported Lieutenant Colonel Beth Parker from her station. "They have welding lasers that can cut through asteroid rock. Should be interesting to see what they do to enemy armor." Johnson nodded as he studied the tactical displays. The human fleet was not just large, it was diverse. Military vessels designed for space combat mixed with converted civilian ships armed with industrial equipment. Corporate security forces brought their knowledge of boarding actions and close quarters fighting. At the center of it all was Admiral Mitchell aboard her flagship, the UES Devastation. The massive command ship had been built as a mobile headquarters for exactly this kind of operation. Its advanced communication systems allowed Mitchell to coordinate hundreds of ships across multiple star systems. "Admiral, we have confirmation from all sector commands," reported her chief of staff. "Total deployment is 412 vessels with more arriving hourly. The enemy has approximately 800 ships in the target area." Mitchell studied the numbers without concern. Human military doctrine had always emphasized quality over quantity, and their ships were designed by beings who had survived on a death world for millions of years. Every system was built to keep fighting. Even when damaged, every weapon was designed to kill efficiently. "What about our people at the battle site?" she asked. "Captain Foster is still holding position, ma'am. The alien ship is secure, but his remaining escort is badly damaged. Estimated time until the enemy can break through his defenses is 6 hours. Mitchell looked at the deployment timeline on her screen. The human fleet would arrive at the battle zone in 4 hours, giving them a comfortable margin to rescue Foster's people and the alien survivors. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "We jump to hyperspace in 1 hour. Anyone not ready by then gets left behind." As the final preparations were made, word of the deployment spread throughout human space. Colony worlds that had been settled by refugees from Earth's wars sent their children messages of support. Mining stations that had been attacked by pirates in the past offered supply bases for the fleet. The reaction was unanimous and fierce. Humanity had been attacked while trying to help others, and every human in the galaxy wanted revenge. The enemy had awakened something that had been sleeping since the end of the colony wars, something that most galactic species had never encountered. They had awakened the collective fury of an entire species that had evolved to survive on a world where everything tried to kill them. The hegemony was about to discover why intelligent predators were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Captain Foster, still fighting his desperate holding action, received a final message from Admiral Mitchell before the human fleet jumped to hyperspace. "Hold fast, Danny. We are coming, and we are bringing everything we have. Make them pay for every second until we arrive." As hyperspace portals began opening around Jupiter, the largest military force in human history prepared to show the galaxy what happened when someone attacked humans conducting a rescue mission. Commander Clickthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his hegemony fleet grow larger by the hour. 800 warships now filled the space around the battle site, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. The insectoid commander clicked his mandibles with satisfaction as he reviewed the tactical display. The primitive human ships had been fighting for hours, but their resistance was weakening. The larger human vessel, the one called Defiant, showed multiple hull breaches and flickering shields. The smaller escort ship was barely functional, listing to one side with atmosphere venting from several compartments. "How much longer can they last?" Clickthak asked his tactical officer. "Perhaps 30 minutes, Commander. Their weapons are running low on power, and their shields cannot take much more punishment." Clickthak clicked with amusement. These mammals had shown more fight than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. Soon he would have both the Federation survivors and examples of human technology to present to the Hegemony Council. The destruction of their homeworld would follow quickly. "Commander, we are detecting hyperspace disturbances," reported the sensor officer suddenly. "Multiple contacts approaching our position." "More Federation ships?" Clickthak asked, though he doubted any would dare challenge his fleet. "Negative, sir. The signatures match the human vessels. But the numbers?" The sensor officer paused, checking his readings again. "Sir, I count over 400 ships approaching." Clickthak's mandibles stopped clicking. 400 ships was a respectable fleet, but still outnumbered by his own forces. These humans apparently did not understand mathematics. "Prepare to engage the moment they drop out of hyperspace. We will crush them quickly and move on to their colonies." The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their ships appearing in waves across a front several thousand miles wide. Admiral Mitchell's flagship, the UES Devastation, took position at the center of the formation while battle groups spread out to surround the hegemony fleet. Clickthak studied the approaching human vessels through his ship's sensors. Many were smaller than his warships, but some were enormous. The largest human ship was bigger than his own flagship, bristling with weapon turrets and armor plating that gleamed like metal scales. "They dare to surround us?" Clickthak chittered, with laughter. "These mammals think 400 ships can defeat 800, open fire and teach them respect." The hegemony fleet unleashed its full firepower at the approaching humans. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled space with deadly light as 800 alien warships fired their weapons simultaneously. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the human fleet did not behave like any enemy Clicktack had faced before. Instead of trying to avoid the devastating barrage, they flew straight into it. Human ships took hits that should have destroyed them instantly, yet kept fighting. Their armor absorbed punishment that would cripple other vessels, and when their shields failed, they simply rerouted power and kept coming. Captain Ryan Clark led his squadron of fast attack ships directly at the Hegemony command vessels. His ship, the UES Lightning, took 3 direct hits that set half his systems on fire, but Clark kept his weapons locked on target. When he was close enough, he fired every missile his ship carried at once. The Hegemony flagship rocked under the impact, as human missiles punched through its shields and exploded against the hull. Clicktack was thrown from his command chair as the bridge filled with smoke and sparks. "Damage report," he screamed at his crew. "Forward weapons are offline, Commander. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. We have lost primary sensors." But the human attack was just beginning. Commander Jennifer Walsh coordinated electronic warfare from her command ship, using human technology to blind Hegemony sensors and disrupt their communications. Suddenly, the alien fleet found itself fighting in darkness, unable to coordinate their massive advantage in numbers. Admiral Mitchell watched the battle unfold from the Devastation's command center. Her tactical display showed human ships working, together with a precision that came from years of training and shared culture. Every captain knew their role. Every crew trusted their neighbors to do their job. "All ships execute pattern Delta 7, Mitchell ordered calmly. "Focus fire on their command vessels first." The human fleet moved like a single organism, individual ships coordinating their attacks with deadly efficiency. When the Hegemony tried to concentrate their fire on one human vessel, 3 others would appear from different angles to provide covering fire and rescue the damaged ship. Captain Gary Thompson commanded a squadron of heavy cruisers that specialized in close-range combat. When several Hegemony ships attempted to retreat, Thompson's force cut them off and systematically destroyed them one by one. There was no mercy in the human attack, no quarter given to an enemy that had murdered rescuers. The Federation survivors, aboard the Defiant, watched the battle in stunned silence. Science Officer Velshawn recorded everything on her instruments, trying to understand what she was witnessing. "Captain Zektar, the humans are not just fighting, they are hunting." Thar. Reptilian Captain nodded grimly as he watched human ships pursue fleeing Hegemony vessels with relentless determination. "They fight like pack predators. Each ship supports the others and none of them break formation." Captain Foster, his own ship now out of immediate danger, opened a communication channel to Admiral Mitchell. "Admiral, the alien captain says the Hegemony has over 300 star systems. This might just be the beginning." Mitchell's voice was ice cold when she replied, "Then we will visit each one until they understand that attacking our rescue missions was a mistake." The battle reached its climax when Admiral Tony Hayes brought his heavy battle group directly against the Hegemony center. The massive dreadnought, UES Retribution, accompanied by 5 sister ships, opened fire with weapons designed to crack planets. The concentrated firepower vaporized a dozen enemy vessels in seconds. Clicktack realized with growing horror that his superior numbers meant nothing against enemies who fought with such coordination and ferocity. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting with damaged systems. Human crews that should have surrendered fought to the last breath. "All ships retreat to hyperspace," he ordered desperately. "We must regroup and call for reinforcements." But the humans had anticipated this. Captain Lisa Martinez, now commanding a squadron of converted mining ships, had positioned her vessels to block the hyperspace escape routes. When Hegemony ships tried to flee, they found their way blocked by humans wielding industrial cutting lasers as weapons. The mining lasers, designed to slice through asteroid rock, proved devastatingly effective against alien ship hulls. One by one, the fleeing Hegemony vessels were caught and destroyed by tools that had been converted from peaceful purposes to instruments of war. Admiral Mitchell opened a channel to broadcast on all frequencies. Her voice carried across the battlefield, to every surviving Hegemony ship. "This is Admiral Karen Mitchell of the Human Defense Fleet. You attacked our people while they were conducting a rescue mission. You murdered 43 humans who were trying to save lives. Surrender now, or we will destroy every one of your ships." The response from the hegemony fleet was silence, followed by more attempts to flee. The humans took this as their answer and continued their systematic destruction of the enemy force. There would be no prisoners taken, no mercy shown to those who killed rescuers. Captain Zektar turned to Captain Foster as the battle neared its end. "Your people, they are predators. Are they not?" Foster looked at the tactical display showing the methodical elimination of the hegemony fleet. His expression was grim but satisfied. "We are whatever we need to be, Captain. When someone needs help, we are rescuers. When someone attacks the innocent, we become something else entirely." As the last hegemony ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma, the battlefield fell silent except for the hum of human engines. 800 alien warships had been reduced to debris and radiation. The human fleet had lost only 12 vessels, and most of those crews had been rescued by their companions. Commander, Clickthak's final transmission was recorded by human communication systems as his flagship broke apart. "Impossible," he chittered weakly. "How can mammals fight like this?" Admiral Mitchell had the answer, though the dead alien commander would never hear it. Humans fought like this because they had evolved on a world where only the strongest, smartest, and most cooperative survived. They fought like this because someone had threatened their pack, and they fought like this because 43 of their people had died while trying to help others. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you attacked the species that had turned a Deathworld into a garden. The news spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. On every civilized world and every spaceport and trading station, beings gathered around communication screens to watch the impossible footage. 800 hegemony warships had been completely destroyed by an unknown species that most galactic citizens had never heard of before. The Galactic Federation Council called an emergency session on the capital world of Centauri Prime. Representatives from over 200 species filled the Great Assembly Hall, their varied forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes under the chamber's bright lights. The air hummed with excited chatter in dozens of languages as delegates tried to understand what they had witnessed. High Chancellor Mordak, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Federation, called for silence with a gesture of his 6 arms. The chamber fell quiet as Captain Zektar was escorted to the witness platform. The reptilian captain still showed signs of his ordeal, but his yellow eyes were clear and determined. "Captain Zektar," the Chancellor began, "you have submitted a formal report claiming that this species called humans destroyed an entire hegemony battle fleet while conducting a rescue operation. This seems difficult to believe." Zektar activated the holographic display at his platform, showing the complete sensor recordings from his ship. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the human rescue mission unfolded, followed by the unprovoked hegemony attack and the devastating human response. "Honored representatives," Zektar said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "I watched these humans risk their lives to save my crew. They had nothing to gain from helping us. They knew nothing about our species or our conflicts. They came simply because we asked for help." The hologram showed the moment when the hegemony fleet opened fire on the human rescue ships, destroying the UES Ranger without warning. Several delegates made sounds of distress as they watched 43 beings die while trying to save strangers. "The humans had every right to flee," Zektar continued. "Their small rescue fleet was outnumbered and outgunned. Instead, they chose to fight and called for their entire military to come help us. They treated an attack on strangers as an attack on their own family." Science Officer Velshan, now serving as a technical witness, added her own testimony. "The human battle tactics were unlike anything in our databases. They fought with coordination that suggested a shared mental link, but our scans showed they were using only radio communications. Their ships continued fighting with damage that should have forced them to surrender." The Federation's military analyst had been studying the battle recordings for days. General Thexmore, a veteran warrior from the militant Krek species, stood to address the assembly. "The human fleet showed tactical superiority that defies explanation. They used converted civilian vessels as weapons of war. They turned mining equipment into ship-killing tools. Most importantly, they showed no mercy to enemies who had attacked their rescue mission." Chancellor Mordak processed this information while looking at the faces of delegates throughout the chamber. Fear, respect, and curiosity mixed in their expressions as they contemplated the implications of humanity's military demonstration. "Where are these humans now?" asked Representative Kelleth from the Peaceful Harmonist Collective. "Their fleet is patrolling the former hegemony territories," Zektar replied. "They have not claimed any worlds or demanded tribute. They simply announced that the region is now under their protection and that all rescue calls will be answered." Ambassador Helen Carter entered the chamber at that moment, escorted by Federation security personnel. The human woman was middle-aged with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons or decorations, but every being in the chamber could feel the quiet strength she carried. "Honored delegates," Ambassador Carter said as she took her place at the diplomatic platform. "I am Helen Carter, representing the United Earth government and all human colonies. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with all civilized species." The irony was not lost on the assembled representatives. This soft-spoken woman represented the same species that had just annihilated the most feared military force in their region of space. "Ambassador Carter," Chancellor Mordak said carefully, "your people have demonstrated remarkable military capability. The Federation would like to understand your intentions." Carter smiled politely, the expression somehow making her seem both harmless and dangerous at the same time. "Our intentions are simple, Chancellor. We will help those in need, protect the innocent, and respond with overwhelming force to unprovoked aggression. This has been our way since we first reached the stars." Representative Zolketh from the Merchant Guild leaned forward in his seat. "And what do you want in return for this protection?" "Nothing," Carter replied simply. "We do not seek tribute or territorial concessions. We ask only for the right to answer distress calls and the understanding that attacks on humanitarian missions will not be tolerated." The chamber erupted in whispered conversations as delegates tried to process this unprecedented situation. Most galactic powers offered protection in exchange for resources, territory, or political influence. The concept of a species that helped others without expecting payment was almost incomprehensible. News of the Federation assembly spread throughout civilized space within hours. On worlds that had been paying tribute to hegemony warlords, populations began to celebrate their unexpected freedom. Species that had been oppressed for generations suddenly found themselves protected by a military force that asked for nothing in return. The hegemony's remaining territories fell into chaos as local commanders fought among themselves without central authority. Dozens of subjugated species launched rebellions, inspired by the knowledge that the humans would protect them if they asked for help. Admiral Chris Martin's diplomatic escort fleet remained at the edge of the Centauri system throughout the negotiations. The human warships made no threatening moves, but their presence served as a constant reminder of the military power backing Ambassador Carter's gentle words. Captain Danny Foster, now recovered from his injuries and promoted to admiral for his role in First Contact, received the Federation's highest honor for valor in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. The medal was presented by Captain Zektar himself, who had insisted on performing the honor guard duty. "Admiral Foster," Zektar said as he placed the crystal medallion around the human's neck, "you and your crew represent the finest ideals of any species. You risked everything to save strangers, and when attacked for your compassion, you called upon your entire people to defend us. The Federation will never forget this debt." Foster accepted the honor with quiet dignity, but his words carried the weight of humanity's new role in galactic affairs. "Captain, we did what anyone should do when they hear a call for help. That some beings choose to punish such actions only proves why the galaxy needs protectors." As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Karen Mitchell received the first of what would become thousands of distress calls from across the galaxy. Species under threat, worlds facing natural disasters, and colonies cut off by war began broadcasting their pleas for help on the frequencies that humans monitored. Mitchell stood in her command center, looking at the communications board that lit up with new requests for assistance every few minutes. Her staff waited for orders, knowing that humanity was about to undertake the largest humanitarian mission in galactic history. Signal all fleet commanders, Mitchell said finally. We have work to do. It seems the galaxy needs rescuers more than anyone realized. The human ships began spreading out across space, following distress signals to worlds they had never heard of to help species they had never met. Behind them, they left a galaxy forever changed by the knowledge that somewhere among the stars, there were beings who would risk everything to help others and fight with unstoppable fury to protect the innocent. Humanity had announced their presence in the galaxy not through conquest or diplomacy, but through an act of compassion that revealed their true nature. They were the species that had turned a death world into a garden, and now they would help others do the same.